Welcome back, everyone, to Seahawk Central News, your source for the latest in local news and entertainment. I'm Trevor Bray.
And I'm Anna Phillips. Don't forget, you can check out tltv.org to keep up with us throughout the school year. Seahawk Central News airs every Monday through Thursday.
This week, we'll take a look at the on-campus motor chase that took place on Chancellor's Walk, ACE's last comic standing, and Wilmington's yearly parade.
Don't forget, Chris Vickery has 2 films that hit the silver screen, and Liz Bernardo asked students about their holiday plans on Talk on the Walk. Be sure to head over to the sports desk with Trey Owings and the rest of the sports team on the half hour.
Stay tuned because Seahawk Central News starts right now.
All-natural marine algae has been found potentially treatable for victims of stroke and other brain injuries. Dr. Dan Baden of UNCW is one of the researchers who has been studying algae for 30+ years and has recently discovered that brevtoxin 2, a compound produced by the algae, can trigger neuron growth. If continued to be proven effective on animals and then people, the compound could be used as treatment in the form of neural repair therapy. This research could prove huge, as stroke is the #1 cause of death in the United States, and there is no current treatment for post-stroke conditions.
Bluegrass music and good spirits filled UNCW's Keenan Auditorium on last Thursday evening. Bluegrass legends Peter Rowan, Cody Kilby of Kentucky Thunder, and the Traveling McCoys all took stage to pay tribute to the father of the genre, Bill Monroe. Monroe's most noted song, Blue Moon of Kentucky, later became a hit for Elvis Presley. In this week's Talk on the Walk, Seahawk Central News reporter Elizabeth Bernardo wants to know what students plan to do for the holiday break.
Hi, I'm Liz Bernardo here with this week's Talk on the Walk. They say it's the most wonderful time of the year, and I want to find out what students are doing this holiday season.
I'm sleeping a lot, just sleeping constantly before I take my next classes. I think I have 6 next semester, so I'm just going to sleep the whole time, do nothing else, and eat, and that's it.
As for this holiday, I'm going to go home to Cary, North Carolina, hang out with my family, catch up with some friends, and then head up to Maryland to visit my mom's family. We don't get to do that very often, so fairly simple plans, but I'm looking forward to it.
My plans for this holiday season are basically to play lots of video games, possibly get some sleep in, and then start studying for next semester, because I already kind of know what's going to be required. Those are my plans.
I'm just going to go home, and I haven't been home in like 6 months, so I'm excited.
I'm spending 12 hours in New York for my Christmas break.
I'm going to St. Augustine, Florida to see my grandma for a week and just hanging out with my family.
This holiday season, I don't have too many plans. I'm just working and not going home for Christmas because tickets are kind of expensive, so really nothing, pretty boring.
And my plans for this holiday break are just to go home and hang out with my family and probably hit the mountains up and go snowboarding.
Whew, to take a break from school. It's a well-deserved break coming up.
My plans for holiday break are going home, spending time with my family and friends, and going to see a lot of theater in New York City.
I'm Liz Bernardo here with Seahawk Central News' Talk on the Walk for Teal TV. Now, back to you.
Have you ever seen a Christmas parade on water? This past weekend, Wrightsville Beach hosted their 29th annual holiday flotilla. Boats were decked out with lights and decorations, and they lined up to parade down Mott's Channel and Banks Channel to the Coast Guard station at Masonboro Inlet. For the first time this year, there were not only station judges to designated wards, but a special People's Choice Award was voted upon via text message by members of the community. In a game show-like fashion, you could text in the number of the boat you thought was the best. Our Logan Spaller was on the scene. Let's see what he thought.
The 29th annual flotilla lit the waters of Wrightsville Beach this past weekend in order to kick off the holiday season. Events included a kickoff party on Friday, as well as the festival in the park and the parade on Saturday, and then a brunch on Sunday in order to award the captains of the event.
The flotilla is a lighted boat parade at Wrightsville Beach. We've done it for 29 years. It started with a group of 3 or 4 people sitting around one night and said, hey, let's light some boats up and have a parade. And here we are 29 years later with 20 boats in our parade. but it's also more than just the boat parade. It's about families and traditions, and they are here every year.
Yeah, we've been doing the flotilla now since 1990. It was my first year. It's been a great cause, brings a lot of stuff into Wilmington, and we've won a few times, about 7 to be precise, but it's for years we did it. There was no prize, there was nothing. It was just for the people, the kids. That's how I started. My daughters were young then. Of course, they're teenagers now, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. People don't realize what it takes to put all this stuff on a boat that's not meant to go on a boat, but it's fun, and it's when you see it at night, it really pays off. There are a lot of good boats this year.
And it's a weekend event. We have a launch party, we have a day in the park, and so it's really all about a family weekend to launch the holidays the weekend after Thanksgiving.
With 22 boats and an expected 50,000 people to show up, the flotilla was once again quite the turnout in this spectacular tradition of Wrightsville Beach. Until next time, I'm Logan Spaller, reporting for Seahawk Central News, TLTV. Back to you.
Over 1,100 undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral Seahawk students say goodbye to faculty, staff, and their peers at the commencement ceremonies on Saturday, December 15th. 2 ceremonies will take place, but both will be held in Trask Coliseum. Commencement for Cameron School of Business, the College of Health and Human Services, and the Watson College of Education starts at 9:30 a.m., while the College of Arts and Sciences graduation begins at 1 p.m. Tickets are not required, and seating will be available on a first-come, first-served basis.
Would you consider yourself to be globally and societally aware of oppressive acts? UNCW's Housing and Residence Life put on a Tunnel of Awareness event on Monday, November 26th that invited groups and individuals to spend the day going through various rooms and displays intended to raise awareness of worldwide issues. Attendees were invited to participate in skits, interactive multimedia, and role-playing. At the conclusion of the tours, there was a panel of UNCW staff and faculty, students, and community members to further discuss the issues raised by the tunnel.
The UNC Wilmington Department of Anthropology played host to international scholar Maria Starzman on Wednesday, November 26th. Starzman traveled from Free University Berlin in Germany to lecture on her study of excavating a Nazi labor camp. The anthropologist is also an archaeologist, and she analyzed the excavations at a former Nazi forced labor camp in Berlin. Starzman focused her study and lecture on the memory and materiality, post-colonial theories, and critical investigations of history and practice of archaeology.
UNCW's annual Last Seahawk Standing took place on Thursday, November 28th this year. The Association for Campus Entertainment, better known as ACE, invited students to put their best jokes and stand-up comedy forward as they competed against each other to be the final comedic victor. Molly Jones is on the scene for TLTV. Molly?
I'm Molly Jones, reporting here at the Warwick Center Ballroom for the annual event, Last Seahawk Standing. Tonight, students will be competing to impress the judges with their best comic material in the hopes of being the finalist. Let's see what happens.
I've actually been wanting to do stand-up for so many years. Like, I had so many heroes growing up. I watched it all the time, and I've wanted to do Last Seahawk every year, but I always tricked myself to not do it, and I finally signed up this year, and that forced me to write my material down and actually try to go out and do this. Winning is amazing. It feels great. Like, I was so stressed standing up there with Ricky. It was crazy. Like, he was reading it off. I didn't believe it that I had that. It was just an amazing experience.
I was the host this year for Last Seahawk Standing, and it was amazing. It was like a whole different element from being a competitor, because this time I could just relax, just make people laugh without having to compete with anybody. And it was just fun, just keeping the audience pumped up and animated and try to keep them laughing. This year, it was just amazing. I think this has been the best year that we've had for Last Seahawk Standing yet, and it's probably only going to get better. I was happy with the results. Not that I could be mad about the results. I didn't vote, but I loved it all, and it was just great. I would do it again if I could. If they let me host next year, they probably won't. But if I toss them some money or something, I don't know what could happen. But it was just fun. I had a good time tonight.
Ever since I started doing this, and I want to do it professionally, everything I see instantly goes into my mind as can it become material, and I start writing things down. And I like everyday stuff that everybody can relate to. For instance, tonight was the whole Texan K thing, Facebook stuff that has happened to me that I can relate to people and people understand it. So I write about anything that happens to me that I know has happened to somebody else, or that's happened to me and I can somehow maybe snake around to get it to relate to some other people.
The competition tonight was stiff, but in the end, there was only one Seahawk left standing. I'm Molly Jones, here for Seahawk Central News, Teal TV.
Hi Seahawks, and thanks for joining me, Jessica Ferrer, for the latest in political news. Hold on to your TV sets because we're about to talk about going over the cliff, the fiscal cliff that is. Congress and the president are currently trying to work out a deal that will prevent us from getting too much austerity too quickly. If this happens, it could potentially cause another recession. But what does this mean? And is there an actual cliff, or is a more accurate term fiscal slope? It's easy to complain about the economy, but it isn't always easy to understand it. Here with me to explain what you need to know about the fiscal cliff is Dr. Thomas Simpson from the Cameron School of Business's Department of Economics. Dr. Simpson, can you simply explain what the fiscal cliff is?
Okay. On January 1st of next year, which is just a few weeks away, there's going to be a confluence of two things happening simultaneously. One is, to a very large extent, the expiration of the Bush tax cuts that were across-the-board tax cuts enacted in 2001. They were enacted for a 10-year period with the possibility of extending. 2 years ago, in 2010, they were extended for 2 years. That 2 years will be up on December 31st, and the old tax rates that applied in 2001 before the tax legislation will be back in force, higher tax rates. There are a few other things associated with that as well. When it comes to compensation for doctors who are involved in the Medicare program, they receive adjustments over and above the scheduled payments, which is necessary for them to want to participate in the program. That will be coming off as well. So that's one side of what's happening. Also, as a result of the Budget Control Act of 2011, many remember this very messy period in the summer of 2011 related to the debt ceiling limit. But as a result of an agreement that was enacted then, there was a default position if an agreement couldn't be reached on permanent deficit reduction. The statute provides for very sharp cutbacks in federal spending. So this is going to be concentrated to a large extent in defense spending, but also in other programs as well. And the two combined are going to be the sharp cut in government spending and the sizable increase in taxes will all occur on January 1st. Now, also, there's a third dimension to all of this as well. The debt ceiling limit, which was raised in August of 2011, we're about to hit that ceiling again. And so undoubtedly, in terms of the discussions that are going on, there's some attention being placed on raising the debt ceiling again. So if that is not done, then we're going to hit the debt ceiling, and that will have even further consequences.
Okay, so instead of the Mayan doomsday of December 21st, doomsday is most likely January 1st if we don't come up with a deal. So who are the key players in making this deal?
Well, obviously the President and the Congress, and the composition of control of the Congress and the White House hasn't changed as a result of the election. So we basically got pretty much the same players in operation now as we did in 2011. We've got a Republican House, Democratic Senate, and a Democratic President, and they see things very differently. But fundamentally, we've got a very, very serious fiscal situation. We have a very large deficit. We're accumulating debt, or we're adding to our debt in excess of $1 trillion a year. It's totally unsustainable. So something has to be done to rein this in. But at the same time, we've got an economy that is kind of just sluggishly moving ahead. And so any kind of fiscal restraint at this point is not going to be good for the economy. And particularly the fiscal cliff, which will take place on January 1st, unless an agreement is reached before that time, that is going to be very draconian in terms of its impact on the economy.
So you do think it's a fiscal cliff versus a fiscal slope, and the fiscal slope meaning that these changes would take effect gradually versus, jumping off over a cliff?
Well, the way the law reads, if there's no change in the law, it's more like a cliff. It's not like a gradually declining slope. We're going to have sharp increases in taxes and cuts in spending on January 1st.
What does this mean for college students? I think a lot of college students kind of disengage once the election is over and they can't update their Facebook statuses anymore about election issues. But this is pretty important. So what could these changes mean for college students?
Well, I think most importantly, the economy will no doubt go into recession if something isn't done. And it's going to hit about the time that the spring semester will be ending, probably actually before then. And so so from the standpoint of those who are graduating or those looking for summer employment, the prospects are going to be much dimmer than they've been the last few years.
Do you think Congress and the president will be able to reach a solution by January 1st?
I'm not sure whether they'll actually reach it by January 1st. Certainly their backs are to the wall, and right now they're playing political games, going through kind of a political dance here to get some ideas in terms of what they can expect, what the best is that they can hope to achieve. It's quite possible they'll reach some agreement by January 1st. I think it's quite possible that the agreement might be just kind of an extension of the current law, not what changes on January 1st, but kind of continuing where we are now, with an agreement that more fundamental agreements will be reached in terms of a more permanent change to taxes, a more permanent change to spending programs, and perhaps even including entitlements.
Well, that's all very good news. Well, thank you, Dr. Zibson, for joining me today and explaining the fiscal cliff to us and our viewers. We appreciate you coming.
Sure. Thank you. My pleasure.
It's been about a month since elections, but Mike McIntyre is just getting settled into his new congressional office for his second term as a U.S. congressman. After an official recount, it was determined that the Robeson County Democrat beat his opponent David Rouser in what was a close race for the seat in Washington. Cape Fear Watchdogs, a political blog part of the Star News, reported that McIntyre not only won the election, but drew a number that got him one of the best office assignments in Congress with a direct view of the Capitol. As Hillary Clinton steps down as U.S. Secretary of State, UN Ambassador Susan Rice is up for nomination by President Obama. The path to nomination has been a turbulent one for Rice, however, as she has been facing criticism from the GOP in regards to the deadly attacks in Benghazi that killed U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans. One of her main critics, Senator John McCain, said that she told things to the American people that were not true. Rice said that the information she shared on television to explain the attacks was incorrect, but was the information she received from intelligence services at the time. She met with McCain and 2 other senators to explain and to answer their questions, but they still are not comfortable with Rice being the nominee. Hillary Clinton will step down as Secretary of State in the new year. Thanks again for joining me to get your political fix, Seahawks. From DC to the Dub, I'm Jessica Ferrer.
This week in Critics on Campus, Chris Vickery and Matt Cox share their take on 2 movies, Life of Pi and Flight. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Trevor, and welcome to Critics on Campus. I'm your host, Chris Vickery, alongside Matthew Cox. Matt, this time, as always, we have 2 movies that we're reviewing this time. Correct. The first of which is Flight. Came out a couple of weeks ago, but it's starring Denzel Washington about a pilot who manages to land a doomed plane and save nearly everyone on board in an emergency landing. And as it goes on and the investigation occurs into what caused the plane crash, you find out he's an alcoholic, he's a bit of a coke addict, and this is all coming to light and revolving around this plane crash and kind of putting his personality in the spotlight in a pretty uncomfortable way. What did you think of this?
This movie was something else. I mean, watching the trailer, I mean, it was pretty, you know, generic. He lands the plane. There's always some sort of controversy, you know. I mean, I really had no idea how, I mean, I knew it was rated R, but after 10 minutes, I mean, you find out why it's rated R. I mean, it is just a hardcore film about the reality, which is he performed a miracle, but he still has to be held accountable for the fact that he was drunk, high off of cocaine, and just, it's just really something else. I mean, there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, and those first 10 minutes are some of the most suspenseful I've seen. The whole movie is very suspenseful, and I haven't been that on the edge of my seat since Argo a couple of weeks ago. And it's really incredible how they're able to infuse such a straight line drama with that level of suspense.
Yeah.
And it's well paced, it's measured, and
yes.
Really an Academy Award-winning performance from Denzel Washington.
Absolutely. I mean, he definitely deserves an award. I mean, whether he wins them is, you know, a different question, but he deserves, you know, a pat on the back for that performance. I mean,
he knocks it out of the park for sure.
Oh yeah.
And and otherwise just an enjoyable movie that really kind of dives into addiction and personality flaws and really paints a picture.
Yeah, it definitely hits home for people, anyone who has, you know, struggled with addiction or known somebody with addiction, or just not even addiction, just a dependency on something simple. I mean, you know, I think it just definitely touches the viewer in a way that, you know,
it'll stick with you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Out of 5 stars, what would you give this one?
I would give this a solid 5 stars. I mean, just the journey you go through with this character, and just, you know, being responsible even though you saved lives. I mean, being accountable for your actions, and just, you know, I mean, it's just, you have to see it to believe it. It's just remarkable.
I'd have to agree. 5 out of 5 for me as well. It is an experience, as is the next film that we're talking about, Life of Pi, which is adapted from a best-selling novel about a young Indian boy who gets shipwrecked with a couple of zoo animals, namely a tiger, a Bengal tiger. And he's stranded at sea for 227 days with this tiger. And the story is told from an older Pi.
Correct.
Who's relaying the story to an author.
Yes.
And what did you think of this one?
You know, going into it, I was a little skeptical. I mean, the premise is pretty unorthodox. You know, I mean, of course, getting shipwrecked, I mean, that's not unorthodox. I mean, but throwing in a tiger and other zoo animals is pretty, you know, crazy. I mean, I do have an irrational fear of being shipwrecked. I mean, now I got to worry about tigers.
Right.
And you know, but while I was watching it, it was definitely, you know, it was definitely worth the watch. I mean, it definitely dives into deep meaning with religion, and it definitely is a great story about survival, how to adapt. It made me appreciate a lot of different things, including my religion, as well as hunger and shade, as simple things that you really don't even give a second thought.
Yeah.
It definitely opened my eyes, and, you know, in addition to the sequences as well were just incredible. I mean, Angeli has a history of doing incredible sequences, but I mean, yeah, I was definitely in for a wonderful surprise.
I think he outdoes himself, and it's one of the most breathtaking movies I've seen in a while. It really blew my mind in a couple of the sequences. And really makes use of today's technology to produce some really stunning visuals.
Yeah.
And I think the story really hits home.
It does.
The movie feels like a religious experience. You know,
Yeah.
you just see it and you're in awe the entire time. And that's something that's really not easy to do. And the most important thing is I think that will be universal to any viewer.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that that's specific to just one kind of viewer.
Definitely.
But out of 5 stars, what would you give this one?
I would have to say 4.5. I mean, only because I do know a couple of skeptics who probably wouldn't enjoy it, only because they're pessimistic and, you know, towards this type of premise. However, I personally really enjoyed the film, and just definitely the spiritual journey that it takes you on.
Yeah, I would have to say a 5 out of 5 for this one as well. I enjoyed it every bit as much as Flight, and it's definitely a movie you need to see on the big screen to appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely IMAX, so you can enjoy every, you know.
Every second.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again for watching. That's it for Critics on Campus. This segment is brought to you by Carmike Cinemas. Once again, I'm Chris Vickery alongside Matthew Cox. Back to you.
A UNC Wilmington patrol car chased a motorist on the main walkway of campus on Monday, November 26. Officer Nathan Hodge spotted the dirt bike on a grassy area near Randall Drive. According to officials, Hodge activated the patrol's car's lights and sirens because the motorist violated several UNCW traffic regulations. Motorized vehicles are only supposed to be driven on roadways on campus and are required to retain a license plate. In addition, neither passenger was wearing a safety helmet. After crossing the Randall Racine Drive intersection, the bike proceeded to use a service roadway near Lutzy Hall and then ultimately turned onto Chancellor's Walk, the main walkway on campus. Witnesses were in awe of the mere sight of the event. Hodge had to suspend his pursuit due to orders given from his supervisor via radio. According to the UNCW chase policy, officers can only chase an offender if the violator has committed a violent felony or possesses an immediate threat of serious injury to the public. The policy also states the officer should consider the degree of risk created by a pursuit by the population size of pedestrian traffic and the nature of the area. Hodge told his supervisor and other officials that his speed was recorded at 15 miles per hour down the walkway. However, the dash cam video states otherwise, showing his maximum speed was 36 miles per hour. UNCW closed their investigation of the issue with no disciplinary action taken against Officer Hodge or anyone else involved.
5 film studies students represented UNCW in Los Angeles this past summer. The students received a grant from the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences that allotted each of them $1,000 to assist with their cost of travel and living while completing internships within their field. Students Olivia Simmons, Brandon Thompson, Ed Miranda Lopez, Sheena Vaught, and Seth Rodriguez are very grateful for the opportunity and assistance provided to them.
The Wilma magazine held its second annual Wilma Expo to showcase local and national businesses Saturday evening at the Wilmington Convention Center. The magazine intended to bring their usual hard print advertisements to real life and just in time for the holiday season. From home decor to fitness to even going green, wide ranges of products were showcased. There were even tables set up to help those interested in growing a business or starting a new career. The Wilma Expo is Cape Fear's largest annual gathering for women, featuring over 200 vendors and thousands in attendance.
This is good for the economy, and all the local businesses here have a chance to interact with probably over 3,000, mostly women, but there are some men here too, and women get to learn what local businesses have to offer them. So there's booths here for careers, families, fashion, health, and of course holiday shopping.
UNCW Assistant Professor Elizabeth Crawford has been named to the Institute for Human Education's National Board of Directors. The IHE is a nonprofit organization focused on human rights, animal protection, and environmental preservation, offering graduate degree programs, online resources, workshops, and summer programs. Crawford is a professor with the Watson School of Education at UNCW and has degrees in anthropology, elementary education, and curriculum leadership. She teaches classes on elementary ed, middle level ed, and literacy education.
The NC Arts Council is truly watching out for UNCW's Department of Creative Writing by donating $9,000 to Lookout Books. Lookout Books is a literary book imprint of the Dub's Creative Writing Department that sponsors the publication of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. The money will go towards the spring 2013 reading tours for poet John Rybecki and memoirist Ben Miller. The Writers' Tours will entail reading and healing arts workshops for cancer support centers, feature workshops and reading focused on place-based writing, and photo exhibits. The NC Arts Council hopes their contribution helps shape lives filled with discovery and learning in the arts industry.
And that brings us to the close of our final episode for the fall semester.
On behalf of all of us here at Teal TV, we wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season.
Be sure to stop by tealtv.org to catch up on each episode. Until next time, I'm Anna Phillips.
And I'm Trevor Bray, saying so long, Seahawks.